Is plasterboard natural and breathable?
So this is one of my favourite questions, because one of my biggest bugbears is people not reading data sheets. So plasterboard, I think, is a bit of an unsung hero of natural building. Gypsum is a natural product. It's in the ground. You dig it up. It's gypsum. You just dry it out to make gypsum plaster or plasterboard. And plasterboard is covered in recycled paper. It just couldn't be better. I mean, do you come across people asking that a lot?
Yeah, the use of gypsum plasters and gypsum-based materials in existing buildings seems to be a highly divisive topic, and we find that actually there's lots of excellent uses for gypsum plasters and gypsum plasterboard. It's all about systems. Assuming the system is properly designed, it can work really, really well. I
get a lot of people saying, "Oh, but I've had gypsum in my house and it's all crystallizing and blistering and doing all this sort of thing." Obviously, every material has an appropriate use case. Plastering onto masonry directly with gypsum plaster is not the way to use gypsum plaster. But as a plasterboard, there's so many fire ratings for it. There's so many use cases for it for mainstream construction. But there's a lot of people in natural building that seem to want to eliminate it because you can't put it in landfill or anything like that. You found out something about landfill, didn't you?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. When gypsum plaster or plasterboard goes into landfill, it can react with some of the organic materials and creates hydrogen sulfide, which can be extremely toxic. Fundamentally, that's not a problem with gypsum or gypsum plasterboard. It's really a human issue. Gypsum is potentially infinitely recyclable. We can turn it into other board type materials such as Fermacell. So it's got a load of potential uses, once we develop those types of processes.
Yeah, proper recycling, yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, talk to me about how, what are the things that you're thinking about when we're looking at using gypsum, as part of an internal wall specification?
I like the fact that it's very vapour permeable. I mean, actually as much, if not more so than things like lime that are kind of commonly touted as for sort of natural building. I love the fact that you can do all your fire requirements with it. It's been tested for everything. So fire is always a bit of a difficult one with natural building materials because so many of them are sort of plant-based. You don't need to bring in specialist contractors to use it. You've got everything you need. Mainstream contractors will pick it up and use it. So just makes it so easy. So yeah, I think it's a great material. I think it's a bit maligned, and I think people actually really just need to read the data sheet. There's so much in a data sheet, and some of the people that are sort of saying, "Oh, plasterboard shouldn't be used," they're saying things that are completely against what's in the data sheet. So yeah, I think it's a cracking product used in the right place. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's probably worth acknowledging one of the sort of limiting factors of gypsum in the retrofit of an existing building is actually the existing walls, uninsulated, tend to be very conductive and have low surface temperatures. And if you use gypsum in that application, because it's actually very good at dealing with moisture, buffering moisture, because it's quite hygroscopic.
Yeah, it is
It can, gypsum is essentially a dehydrated mineral.
Yeah.
And, if you have an uninsulated solid wall with high surface condensation risk existing, the gypsum plaster stores a lot of moisture and essentially creates a solution again. And that's what people identify as an issue with
salt
gypsum
crystals you get and
decaying.
the blistering and everything.
But once you're using a dense hygroscopic material like wood fibre, which does an exceptionally good job of moisture buffering, then actually a gypsum plaster or plasterboard is a really useful surface finish, as we've been discussing.
Well, it's on the warm side for a start, isn't it? It's not going to be cold and damp like it was on the masonry.
So a really useful material, but in conjunction with a well thought out and properly specified internal wall system.
And the embodied energy is low. It's made on vast industrial processes. Energy is money. There's always this drive to reduce cost in manufacturing. So the embodied energy of plasterboard is really low, particularly compared to materials like lime, where you're burning limestone, you're chemically changing limestone. So actually, it's a really useful material in natural breathable construction.
Yeah, the firing temperature for gypsum is about, the same temperature as a domestic oven, 150 degrees for an hour or so versus, 11 to 1500 degrees, depending on the type of lime that you create.
Absolutely. So. Good. Excellent. We did that conclusion.